Right guys, we have details on the price and performance of the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and so let's delve into this leak. But first, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. And with that being said, let's just tuck in. Right, so the information is coming from Dylan DKT. This guy is pretty accurate, and so we can trust this information. Right, so delving into the leak, let's delve into the performance. Dylan says the 14-inch should have the exact same performance as the 16-inch, which will be a first for the smaller MacBook Pro, because in the past, the bigger Intel MacBook Pro always had the edge when it came to performance because of the larger thermal capacity. And so I can see many consumers being a huge fan of this change, because no longer do you have to compromise performance for the extra portability you get with the 14-inch size. But guys, I can't lie, this seems a little too good to be true, and so let's delve into why I disagree with this tidbit. And that really comes down to the fact the 16-inch MacBook Pro is a lot more expensive than the 14-inch. I mean, we're expecting a $500 premium for the 16-inch, and so how does it make any sense that all you're getting with the bigger size for the hefty premium is a slightly bigger display? That makes no sense, and there is no incentive for most to get the 16-inch. And yes, I know there is a chance that Apple either gives us a higher price with the 14-inch or a lower price for the 16-inch to bring these MacBooks closer in terms of pricing. But honestly, considering that pretty much every Apple Silicon Mac refresh so far has maintained the same price as their Intel predecessors, does make me think that the same will apply to the M1X MacBook Pros. Also, do remember that within Apple's other lineups, we tend to see exclusive features for the bigger sizes. For example, the iPhone 12 Pro Max had a much larger sensor over the iPhone 12 Pro, and also it came with sensor shift stabilization. And of course, more recently with the iPad Pro, we only got mini LED on the bigger size. And so it does seem to me that Apple wants to differentiate the smaller and bigger size option. And so yes, as much as I would love for Dylan to be right, I think he might be wrong, and instead I see Apple either giving us the 32-core GPU only on the 16-inch, or of course maybe a binned version of the M1X for the entry-level 14-inch MacBook Pro. Anyways, moving on to the price, Dylan pretty vaguely says the 14-inch is going to be more expensive than the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Now initially I was unsure which 13-inch MacBook Pro Dylan was referring to, because obviously there's a 2-port M1 model at $1,300, and then the 4-port Intel version at $1,800. That's the one we're expecting the M1X MacBook Pro to replace. And so I was thinking that maybe this meant the 14-inch was going to be $2,000. But thankfully Dylan clarified this with Mac Rumors and said that the price should be similar to the high-end 13-inch MacBook Pro, so that means $1,799. That's what all the leaks have been saying so far, so yes, Dylan seems to be corroborating with that information. So basically when he says the 14-inch is going to be more expensive than the 13-inch, he's referring to the current M1 model, and that's something I want to clarify with you guys, because there seems to be confusion regarding where this M1X MacBook Pro will sit in the lineup. And so yes, let me be clear guys, this M1X model is not replacing the M1 version. This is going to be a higher end version that Apple's going to sell alongside the M1 version at $1,800. And this has always been the case with the MacBook Pro range. There's been a clear distinction between the entry-level and higher-end version, and this M1X MacBook Pro is replacing the 4-port higher-end 13-inch that Apple still sells, and the 14-inch is very much a prosumer machine. Now yes, I know it's going to be pretty odd that Apple sells the M1 MacBook Pro with the older design and a touch bar at a cheaper price than the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and that is a valid point, and to that I say there is a chance the 13-inch MacBook Pro gets discontinued. We've actually heard about this through Dylan DKT, and this does actually make sense because in the past the base MacBook Pro had a purpose. It was so much more powerful than the MacBook Air, but of course it wasn't as expensive as the higher end MacBook Pros. and so that's why the base MacBook Pro was a very popular machine. But now that's no longer the case with M1. The M1 MacBook Air is a beast, and there is little to no performance difference with the M1 MacBook Air and the M1 MacBook Pro, so I can see Apple getting rid of the M1 MacBook Pro and simplifying the entry-level lineup. In fact, we've heard about the M1 MacBook Air sticking around alongside the M2 MacBook Air when that launches, and so I can see the M2 MacBook Air with its new design and mini LED and the M2 chip taking the M1 MacBook Air spot in the lineup at $1,300, and then Apple continues to sell the M1 MacBook Air for the same price. But anyways, coming back to the 14-inch, I'm hoping that's clarified things, and if you are waiting for the 14-inch, expect to pay a minimum of $1,800. Anyways, tell me in the comments below, do you think the 14-inch is going to get similar performance to the 16-inch MacBook Pro? Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out that video in the icon above on details regarding the iPhone 13. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.